Hello, and how are you doing? I am with Paul Negyesi. It's a automotive classic car journalist and classic car aficionado. We have met at Concours d'Elegance Sinaia a couple of years ago, and we start chatting from time to time regarding not the classical car market, but the issues that we as journalists are facing with this subject. Um, Paul has started by himself a very beautiful and interesting magazine. It's called Rare and Unique Vehicles. I have a couple of printed issues here. He is always also online with his website. And the most important thing about his magazine, every issue is like a book, and every issue has its own theme, which is very interesting. And this is the thing that we would like to discuss today on our podcast. But Paul, before talking about your magazine, tell us some few words about you, about your passion, and what was the idea behind starting this magazine and the concept behind it.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I just modified my heading so it looks better. I'm very proud of the doctorate I received a few years ago from the University of Leicester in England, where I'm currently living. At that time, I was living in Hungary and Austria because I'm one of the very few people who wrote a thesis on automotive museums, especially about the curatorship, the history of curatorship in museums in Germany and Austria in the 20th century. And this thesis has been very well received. In fact, I've been researching the history of Hungarian motoring since 1992. And I have written a lot of books, articles, I'm giving lectures at the Hungarian University where a classic car restoration course is ongoing. So I really, really love and enjoy automotive history. But when COVID came, we were living in Austria at the time, and with COVID, all of my research projects, all of my book projects, everything came to a sudden stop. Obviously, the whole world was closed, and I very vividly remember September 2020, sitting outside our house in a pouring rain in my car and thinking that I will most probably will go crazy if I don't do something creative. I will go definitely I will go crazy. I cannot just sit here and do nothing. So between 1997 and the year 2000, I was the editor of a classic car magazine in Hungary, Auto Classic, which was very well received, and there were 13 issues published. So as I was thinking, what should I do? What should I do? I thought, okay, let's try to do something which is fun. Let's try to do a magazine. So the next step was obviously to call my brother, because my brother is handling most of my finances, as I have to very openly and honestly admit that I'm very easily spending money I don't have. So my brother is keeping the reins very tight. So I told him that I would like to do a magazine. And he told me that, well, he's happy to support it as long as I meet certain criteria. So I announced online that I would like to do this magazine. What do you think? Would you be interested? And so on. A Hungarian friend of mine, whom I did not speak to for about 18 years, immediately came to me and said, this is an absolutely great idea. I would be happy to do the layout, the graphic design for you for free, which he did. And an American friend of mine, David Cooper, who runs a restoration shop near Chicago, became one of the associate editors, and a Dutch friend, a classic car restoration expert, Tony Palman, became the second editor. So we sat down and I told them what I have in mind. And 2 months later, we had a magazine. The first issue of Rare&Unique Vehicles was out. It was amazing. It was very unexpected. And this year we celebrate the 4th volume. So it's a quarterly magazine. And as you said, it's available both as a printed magazine and it's also available digitally on the Readly platform, where you can read plenty of magazines online and you can also check out Rare&Unique Vehicles. It's great to see that on the Readly platform we have about 1,000 or so visitors, readers, and they spend 20-25 minutes with the magazine, which from an online publication is quite good. And by the look of it, they return, if we look at the statistics. The paper magazine, as you know very well, publishing a paper magazine in this time and era, it's a challenge. But we are at volume 4. We have a lot of very enthusiastic readers and supporters. So the magazine is here. We have been honored and privileged that in 2022, the American Society of Automotive Historians presented us with the Richard Brigham Award for the most exemplary treatment of automotive history. And as fate has it, 2 weeks ago I was in America at the annual conference of the National Association of Automobile Museums, and I met the leader of the committee who oversaw the Richard Brigham Award. So I thanked him and he said, "No, I thank you because you are doing a great magazine." And I'm very, very proud that I received this feedback. So at the conference, I met a lot of people and they really like the magazine. And everywhere we go and everywhere we present the magazine, the response is very enthusiastic. Yes, it's a very small publication. And again, in this time and age, it's difficult because you have to read it. I tend to say this is not a real magazine. This is another category called the bookazine. So a magazine which is, in reality, it's a small book, a condensed book. And in issue number 2, which was about microcars, the theme was diminutive, so very small. And there were 31 articles in there. And afterwards, the other editors told me, never do that again, ever. So the maximum is 20 articles. That's enough. You do longer articles, nicer pictures, and yeah. But after number 2 came out, I received a call from Switzerland, and the microcar collector called me and said that he's been collecting microcars for 50 years and he has lots of microcars and books and everything. And he bought the magazine and thought, I know everything about microcars, and he just called me to tell me that now he knows nothing about microcars, and he ordered 60 magazines on the spot. So I was very proud of them. And in the last little bit more than 2 years, we have a new team member from Hamburg, Nicole Krohn. I have to praise her openly. She's our layout editor. Unfortunately, the Hungarian friend, Matthias, who designed the original magazine, passed away at the end of 22. Yes, end of 22. And it was very sudden. Nicole is helping us out with the beautiful layouts. So we are very happy to have her. And as it was mentioned, every issue has a theme. The latest one was celebration, as we celebrated the 4th volume, plus featured some anniversaries like 100 year of the Duco paint, which was again very well received because there are not so many articles about paint, about the development.
Yes, but before enter very deep in the topics of your magazine, I have to mention that the magazine is written in English, so everybody virtually can read it, a printed version or online. And I have to thank you for all the information that you will provide us, and to mention for our listeners and viewers that all the links will be before the video, so everybody will can contact you, ask questions if there are some, and to order the magazine or maybe to make a subscription. All the informations will be there. So Paul, you told me before this conversation that you've been to Great Britain for what kind of job?
We moved to the UK after Christmas 21, and we are here since then. It's mostly for family reasons, but together with the University of Leicester, where I did my PhD, we are in the middle of a research grant application which involves the leading British motor museums, so the National Motor Museum in Bewley, the British Motor Museum in Gaydon, Brooklands, the Ulster Transport Museum in Ireland, Science Museum, and several academics. It's titled Moving Forward, Curating Automobility, and we try to help British motor museums, automotive museums, to cope with the challenges of a new era, the increasing anti-motoring sentiment and challenges posed by pollution and safety issues. So there is a new genre, academic genre, the automobility, in the last 25 or so years. So using the literature of automobility, we try to encourage and help British Motor Museum to use this literature for exhibition. It's been done at the Technisches Museum in Vienna, Deutsches Museum in Munich, in Smithsonian, and there are already signs in the UK. The first exhibitions have been done. So this grant will try to expand it, and at the end we will try to establish a British Association of Motoring Museums, similar to the National Association of Automobile Museums in America. Actually, they will be a mentor to us.
Why do you think they felt the need to gather like this into this type of association? It is related to the new classic car market. What is there, if there is any concern about the future of classic car market? Which are the insights of it?
There are concerns. There is a very nice and knowledgeable person here in the UK, Anders Klassager, who is the secretary of the Society of Automotive Historians Britain. And he's been ringing the alarm bells, actually, that this hobby will die, because the enthusiasts who, for example, if you look at Edwardian cars, so very early cars, it's true that there's the London Brighton run every year for pre-1904 cars, but those who participate tend to be older people. So the younger generation, yes, there are some enthusiasts, but by and large, the younger generation is no longer interested in these very early cars, even in the 1920s, 30s cars. They are more interested in a Volkswagen Corrado or something. Okay, it's now a classic car for sure, but not the same one from the 50s or earlier. So one thing is which is a general concern everywhere, that this is a hobby for older people, which is to a degree true, but not entirely. And then you have the problem with the materials experts, so restoration experts. You have the problem with fuel, because the transition to electric cars is inevitable, or so it seems, which also means that there's going to be a problem with the fuel. So Anders did a very nice article on this, which I very rudely and crudely just summarized. And we are talking about that, but for example, with the research grant and with other things, it is hoped that we can show that the classic car hobby is here to stay.
But how do you see this future of classic car hobby? As only as a hobby we are meeting every weekend, or only for events, or only on classic on museums or special events, or we can use our classic cars like a daily basis during the summer or so on? Because it is obvious that together with the electrification of automotive field, the pressure on classic cars has increased on the one hand, and on the other hand, there is a question if the new cars, electric or hybrid, or even cars from the years 2000 onwards, uh, they can have the potential to become classic because of all the electronics that you have to deal with, and all the laptops and hardware and software to have it, and to know how to operate, to start and make the maintenance of these modern cars. And this is an issue that I'd like to discuss with you. What is the future of these modern cars and their potential to become classic cars, for, I don't know, to be used, not just to be seen in the museums or conservatoires?
Well, modern cars will be classics one day. Case in the point is that at the Technisches Museum in Vienna there is a Tata Nano, and at the Deutsches Museum I've seen a Smart. No, actually it's in both museums there is a Smart. So there are certain cars. As for a general hobby, for the foreseeable future, I would say that this is not going to change. And there is a very important aspect, that there are classic cars which are looked at as investment, and like paintings or sculptures, and that market is very strong and breaks new records. So as a type of investment, the classic car is definitely here to stay. I don't think fuel will be a problem in our lifetime. As for regulations, I can only tell you that very recently Germany was forced to stop the subsidy of electric cars, because it was ruled that the German state is spending too much, and the court ordered them to be more frugal. One of the things the German government did was to cut this subsidy of electric cars, and sales fell dramatically. So we are talking about electrification. We are talking about the inevitability of electrification, but deep down, that's still a good few years away, if we are optimistic. If you talk to the car manufacturers, the leading car manufacturers in Europe, the picture is getting cloudier, let's say that, because you have the Chinese coming into Europe with the electric cars, and immediately the EU start investigations, because these electric cars receive state subsidy from China, which makes competition not so clear. So yes, electrification will happen, but not so soon as one would expect, which also means that the classic car hobby will not die so easily. As for modern cars becoming classic, yes, there is a danger of obsolete technology. For example, if you would like to play a VHS video today, which was very common 15, 20 years ago, it's an exotic thing to play a VHS video. It's very exotic thing to show my children that here is a telephone. You need to pick up the receiver and push or even dial to make a
Yes.
phone call. Or I just spoke to a few people in America and told them that 40 years ago we had to queue on the street if we wanted to make a phone call, and we had to have special coins to make a phone call. And you could not have a telephone in your home, you had to wait to have a phone, which is absolutely alien to someone in England or America or Germany. And on the same note, modern cars, some of those will be classics. That's inevitable. That's how this thing goes. Which will be classic and how the technology will be kept? That's a very good question. So that's where museums play a leading role and collections, private collections. But as you have still have, for example, customers for vinyls, the old sound recordings, and in fact, vinyl recordings enjoy a newfound popularity, and they are now selling more and more vinyl players. So this will the market will shape itself. Let's put it that way.
Yes, you have perfectly right, and you touch some very interesting key points of for our discussion. So first of all, there will be still a market for classic car, but you have to choose wisely what car will have the potential to become a classic. Second is that there is a new there are some new customers, younger person, which will discover step by step the passion for having a classic car. So there will be a market for this. I'm speaking about market as a whole, not especially from commercial point of view or museum, as a market, as a field. And there will be also some businesses opportunities for the maintenance shops who can be able to keep the technology from today for the future to preserve and maintenance the future classic cars which are actually built today or in these years of we are living. So yes, it's a very interesting, and I am very curious about how this market will develop in the future, because I have noticed that even in Romania, after 30 years of democracy, only now there are some private collectors with small collectible cars, most of them new cars, let's say the years 60, 70, 80, or maybe 90. They are not very expensive cars, but the people, younger people, are starting to collect them and to keep them in private spaces. Very, very nice. There are not many, but there is a tendency, as you mentioned. So it's interesting. I know in UK or in the Western countries, classic car hobby is almost a religion. Maybe not everybody, but all the families have at least one classic car. especially they who are live not in the big cities but in the outskirts or small villages, and they are meet every weekend for special events. So I hope there will be this case also in Romania or in our countries, Bulgaria, Hungary, and so on. But we have
Romania
to.
is amazing. I have to tell you that when I saw a Lastun last year at the Sinai concourse, I thought this is absolutely great, and I congratulated the organizer because this is absolutely fantastic. You have a Romanian automotive industry. You are proud of the Romanian automotive industry, and we can put aside all the quality problems and everything of the last one. That's okay, that's fine. But keeping, preserving it, showing it, displaying it, explaining it, that's great. And every year at Shinaya, there is a class for Romanian vehicles, and that's just I really, 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 really like that. So
Yes,
out
thank
out
you.
to the organizers.
Yes, yes, thank you. Yes, they are doing a great job actually. It's a very interesting concourse, and unfortunately, there are some people with very interesting collections which are not public, so we don't have access to see some vehicles which are registered in Romania. But maybe in the future, we will be able to do this. I have to ask you now, how do you how do you find your subjects for the magazines, and if all the vehicles that you presented are still alive, you can find at least one unit of everyone, or there are also some just the story behind some vehicles.
Not always. So we figure out a lot of themes in advance and then start collecting materials. And everyone has an idea, everyone has more than one idea. We have regular contributors, we are looking at various internet websites, talk to friends, and eventually there is an outline. So the magazine has two parts. One is the theme, and the second is that because we don't carry traditional advertising, we have a lot of friends and supporters, private collectors, museums, and so on. And we introduce vehicles from their collection, and in turn they support the magazine. This is called the Collectors Plaza. So right now we have 7 of these organizations. So that's always a given because they have a very long list of vehicles and we pick one that we will introduce, that or that one. As for the theme, we have a lot of contributors, and after a lot of brainstorming, we have an idea, and then usually what happens is that we have to leave 1 or 2 articles out because when we start receiving the articles, they are usually longer, with more beautiful photos. For example, we are now working on the next issue about family, and as usually, it has more than one meaning. So, family can obviously mean father, son, cousin, and so on. For example, the Toyota family, which brought us Toyota. And but the other meaning is a group of companies, for example, General Motors, a family of companies, and here we choose interesting examples. For example, General Motors had a brand called the Viking, and the Viking existed for 2 years, 1929 to 1930. It was one of the first cars with a monoblock V8 engine, and there are only a very few survivors. So it was a companion brand to the Oldsmobile. So at the Erie Olds Museum in Lansing, Michigan, they have a Viking, and we organized a photo shoot, and the car was photographed, and it's great. And sometimes it's my interest which drives a story. Sometimes the other editor's interest. For example, in the number 9, the provenance issue, David Cooper just finished the restoration of a very interesting Peugeot, which once belonged to Dorothy Patton. So he wrote about that. And the previous issue, number 13, we have in the celebration issue, we talked about, for example, Robert Schwenke. And that was my idea because Robert Schwenke is a very interesting but largely unknown German engineer. And he was almost as talented as Ferdinand Porsche, but there's almost nothing on him available. So we have a regular contributor, Eric Eckermann, who is the former curator of road transport at the Deutsches Museum. And every quarter he writes about something interesting, and that's where you cannot find a survivor. For example, once he wrote about the Uttermühle coach building company, and there is no surviving car which carries a body. And so I met the name Robert Schwenke when I did my PhD and I spent weeks at the archives of the Deutsches Museum. I found his name in a very few articles in old German motoring magazines, but only a few. And there is a very nice German book, Die Bauern Autos, about the people who were connected to the German auto industry. It's a very big book. And Robert Schwenke is very briefly mentioned, relatively briefly mentioned that. So I asked Mr. Eckermann, can he do an article? And after 2 weeks of thinking about it, he collected all the bits and pieces and became a very nice article. So this is how we work.
Interesting, very interesting. And you spend a lot of time in the archives, not on Google.
I have spent in the last, ever since we moved to the UK, I spent a little less time in the archives, but this is about to change again because it looks like I will have some new research projects, which is too early to discuss at this moment, but it seems that I will return to the archives. And luckily, although I cannot be physically at archives, it is possible to do a combination. So you look at the inventory online and then ask specific documents to be photocopied and specific photographs. So that helps. And but in the last 2 years, we focused on the magazine, although there were a couple of books published, like in 2022, Alles mit Motor, the Standard Gutbrot story in German for a German collector. It's a hardcover book, and again, it received a few awards. It's a really nice book, and for that I did some archival research in Stuttgart to help the authors a bit. And then we also in 22 we published a book for a Dutch museum, the Metropolitan collection, about a 1902 the Dietrich and the Paris-Vienna race from 1902, which celebrated its 120th anniversary. And then last year we did a website on the Gordon Bennett Cup for a German collector who's now organizing an exhibition of the Gordon Cup at his museum near Frankfurt in Bad Homburg. So yes, I try to do research.
Yes, otherwise it can be done. Another question is there is a tendency there are some discussions on some forums and website about refurbished all classic cars with electric engines. From my point of view, this is not the solution. Because maybe you can preserve the design or maybe just the spirit of the car, but you will not have all the features that a classic car has. And on the other hand, the car will become faster, probably powerful, but the safety systems and devices will be obsolete. So it can be a problem. How do you see this tendency?
No comment.
Correct.
At all. Nothing.
It it should be forbidden to do this, and so on. So, starting of our discussion, that your magazine should be not just seen but read it, because there are some very deep information about all the issues and subject, and this is the core value of rare and unique vehicles, the information, not just the photographies and the car itself. Um it's very interesting to see that, because when I publish my own classic car magazine, all the people are saying to me that I should put everything online, because they don't have time to read, or they don't have space to get a collection of magazines. What is your feeling about this, and what is your feedback that you are getting?
It is true that people don't have time to read. It is true that it's difficult to store the magazine, but it can be a plus, because people really appreciate a magazine, and they take time out from their busy schedule, an afternoon or a weekend. They know when it's out, and within a few weeks they find time to properly enjoy it. And this is the feedback we receive, that encourages people to read. It encourages people to learn, which is amazing, and I'm very happy. And this is why we do it, that we we try to introduce aspects of automotive history which is not very well known. And yes, we feature, as someone put it, we are a quirky magazine. You can see the history of advertising trucks, the history of sightseeing vehicles, and nobody would touch that. But still, it's very interesting. If you look at what happened, that the first sightseeing vehicle or exhibition vehicle was built in 1915. So today you have the Dotto train from Italy, which is very common, and you can see it in fairgrounds and on the streets. But there are so many different variations and so many interesting such vehicles, that it was really nice to include it. And we uh, we don't feature Porsche. I don't think we ever. Yeah, no, sorry. We had one Porsche. We had a one-off Porsche. We had one Ferrari. I think we had one Jaguar or two. But we feature brands and people who are not very well known, and the magazine helps spread information and knowledge. And the feedback, well, there is a there was a magazine, Special Interest Autos, in the 70s in America and 80s. It was edited by Michael Lamb, and it was one of the magazines I grew up with. And Michael Lamb is a subscriber to Rare and Unique Vehicles, and when he sent me an email that this is a beautiful magazine, I was very, 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 very humbled and very, very, very happy. And this was repeated a few times by other people, like I can say Ken Gross, who is the former curator of the Peterson Automotive Museum and one of the best-known experts of classic cars in America, and he loves Rare and Unique Vehicles, and recommends the magazine to every one of his friends. And that way, the magazine becomes better known, because so far the best advertising method is word of mouth, and that's how the word gets around.
Yes, you are perfectly right, and thank you. The most important thing, from my point of view, this between online and the print version, is that in online you cannot have cover, the cover story, and the theme, which is only for the books and for the print magazines. So uh, I think, from my point of view, a lot of magazines, big brands magazine, they simply just been lost in the online world, because they cannot come up with a cover story anymore.
Yeah.
They can have great text, great pictures, great stories, but no cover. Like this one, for example. It's a great cover.
Yes.
Great cover. Only 3 colors.
Yes, and
Perfect.
that's the work of Nicole Krohn again. It's her idea, her vision. My content, her vision, and it works great.
Yes, I know how it is. I've been through this. So, Paul, because we don't have too much time to spare now, I hope we will see again for a next discussion or topic in couple of weeks and maybe more, maybe a month. We'll keep in touch till then. But I want to tell me and our readers and viewers that. Uh, from your point of view, which are the most important car collectors and the museums that every aficionado should see in its lifetime? And what did you learn watching those collections?
Uh, in Europe, one of them there are two very nice collections. One is the Lumen Museum in the Netherlands, and the other is the P.S. Speicher collection in Germany in Einbeck. Uh, the Lumen Museum is amazing because it has a Chinese car, it has Dutch cars, it has very early cars, so it offers a very nice and very curated overview of automotive history. P.S. Speicher has some very exciting vehicles, and they have, for example, a Benz Victoria, which still carries a German number plate, and from time to time they take it out. And I mean, this is a car from 1893 or something like that, and it's amazing. So, and they have 4 depots, and now you can visit also the depots. So you can easily spend 3 days there. I heard, but I did not visit yet, but I plan to visit the National Automobile Museum in Germany, the Loch collection, somewhere between Köln and Nuremberg. So I hope that I will be able to visit that next week. So I heard that it's great in this region. Well, it's a little bit conflict of interest, but there is a private museum in Hungary which is open to the public by appointment for groups near the Balaton Lake, belonging to Géza Kali, doctor. And there you can see Faszelvega, for example. You can see Hungarian cars and motorcycles. Obviously, I can mention the Tiriac collection in Romania. There are
Thank you.
some very exciting cars, so yes, that's on the list. And in the Czech Republic, our friend Mr. Lubos is running the Veteran Arena Museum with very nice cars of Czech and Czechoslovak origin, going back to the beginning of the 20th century. And he even built a replica of a streamlined Vikov, which is on the cover of our first issue. So, and we can go on because the list is actually very long, because for some reasons you can visit the Deutsches Museum in Munich, the Deutsches Technik Museum in Berlin, Technisches Museum in Vienna, Mulhouse, the French National Museum. And if you are in France, you can spend weeks visiting small museums, and that's one of the beautiful things about France, that they have dozens of these small collections which feature absolutely not well-known small French brands, of which one or two survive somehow, and they stand in a corner, and you have to be really knowledgeable to know that here's a Benjamin, here's a DFP, here's a Sima Violet, here's a, and so on and so on. So this is the advantage of France. In Italy, you have all these people who collect motorcycles, Italian motorcycles, and you can call them when you are in the area, and We are happy to show your collection. So it's very difficult to tell you a list. I said a few names, but in reality, you should visit my guide, automuseums.info. We list 1,600 collections from 67 countries, and whatever your plans are, I'm sure you can find the museum there. And that's
Yes,
for the
super.
marketing pitch.
Super, thank you. Very good tip. A last question is related to refurbishing and restoring classic car vehicles. In your point of view, what is the margin, or in terms of how much can you change or to add a classic car vehicle to make it, I don't know, running or looking like in the original state? Uh, because there are some discussions that you cannot restore 100% because you don't have the oil, the rubber, the bearings, and a lot of parts from that period, and you have to adapt new parts for an old class vehicle or to
That's a
build.
very good question, and I'm going to answer it in a second.
No problem.
I found it. So I'm not an expert to answer this question, but my very good friend, Dr. Gundula Tut, answered all of these questions in this German language beautiful book.
Super.
So if you have all these questions, then please, Dr. Gundula Tut specializes in paint, how to preserve the original paint of the car. And because of all these questions, she put together this beautiful book. And it helps. It helps a lot.
Maybe I will get in touch with her, because it's a very important topic from
It
my
is a very
point.
important topic, and she's very passionate about it.
Because it's always a question of, it depends how many things are you changing on the cars, if the value still remains, or it's a different discussion and topic. So thank you very much for your
Thanks
time
for
and
the
for your
opportunity.
kindly answers. Yes, maybe we'll keep in touch, and we have some interesting other topics to discuss from our journalistic point of view related to the classic car market and the classic car collectors and aficionados. I hope we'll meet in Sinaia this year if you will come, and maybe we'll have a live coverage from that for all our fans.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.